This is Coda Radio, episode 41 for March 18th, 2013. You're listening to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, Godaddy.com and Ting.com. I'll tell you more about them as the show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, Mr. Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Good morning, Herr Commandant.
I thought you were going to be Mario today.
I forgot.
I had a Bowser ready.
We'll take it back. Good morning, Luigi.
No. I don't just do Bowser on demand. It's got to be a surprise.
Well, we'll have to wait for Bowser next week. I'm sorry, I did Sergeant Schultz.
All right.
Damn it. Okay.
It's all right. It's gonna, people better get used to it because it's gonna be a wild and wacky episode today.
It is our first call-in episode, and Google Docs is down, so we have no show notes.
I know, we have no show notes, which means we're going to do emails next week because
yes.
That's how we keep track of it all, is through a Google Doc, and I have no links to load. I mean, so fortunately, we have a chat room full of smart people.
Yes, and crazy people.
We've got our phone number on the live stream right now, and it's actually been a pretty big week, so we've got some pretty good topics to kind of chew through that we think people might want to call in and talk to us about. So I think it's actually going to work out pretty good, all things considered.
Yep, and I just want to reiterate, if you did email in, don't worry about it, you'll be in next week. Assuming Google Docs doesn't blow up again. And if they do, we'll have a raging anti-cloud episode.
And a topic...
So...
No kidding, right? And we might get into that in a little bit. But I also just want to make a disclaimer. If Michael says something crazy this episode, we can just blame it on the fact that he has a cold. Right?
Yeah, so you know how I constantly blog and post about how you should, if you're ill, don't overwork yourself.
No, you need to get as much sleep as possible. That's the key.
Yeah, I decided to, while sick, pull all-nighters.
You see, now, Mr. Dominic, you know better. You know that sleep is key to recovery.
But Chris, have you never seen a hypocrite before?
Oh, I have. A few times, actually. Yeah. Well, see, what you're doing right now is you're just proving to us that we should follow your advice. Right,
because obviously I don't, and I feel like I'm going to die.
This is you conducting science.
Science!
All right, well, before we get to our first caller this week, let's thank our first sponsor, and that is GoDaddy.com. Of course, everyone out there is probably familiar with GoDaddy, and for a good reason. They are the world's #1 domain name registrar with more than 10.6 million active customers worldwide. And that, right there, matters to you. If you are somebody who builds sites, creates and registers domains for other people, and then want to be able to walk away and don't have to worry about, the renewals, maybe getting a different version of the domain name, maybe transferring to a different host, all those kinds of things, you don't want to have to deal with that stuff. That's why you go to GoDaddy. Not only do they make it super easy to buy, and we've got a great discount code for you, so you get a great deal, but they also are so well known and so well used that it's very, very easy in a client or family or friend relationship to just say, here you go, here's your account info. Now, if you want to buy, say, yourself a .com, because everybody knows the .com's where it's at, use our code, CODER295. $2.95, CODER295. You know why? $2.95. .com. $2.95 for your .com when you're over at GoDaddy.com. And
Chris, not to interrupt your ad read, but I used that code just this week.
You used Coder295?
I tried to use it 3 times.
Can you use it 3 times?
No, you cannot.
The nice thing is they have a little view offer details right here when you use the link in our show notes, and when you use that link, we get credit. And then
I do have a suggestion for listeners.
Oh yeah.
So let's say you need to buy 3 domain names. Buy one with Coder, then TechSnap, and if you really have to, buy one with Linux 295. And I'll tell you why. And you can soundboard this.
Okay.
Linux is a passing fad. I'm thinking Mibit's coming back. Linus had a great idea, but you know what? Big boys need to use Mibit, and that's the way it goes.
Hey, you know what? If anything...
And I think I meant Minix, because Mibit is the chat protocol.
If anything, you're just, you're all about...
business?
And you know that when you're taking care of...
business?
That it's important not to be a curmudgeon. And
oh God,
Do the right thing. Use Coder 295. It helps support this show, lets our sponsor know that you appreciate them supporting Coder Radio. And it's great to have GoDaddy on board because I know a lot of you out there have projects where you need a .com, and Coder 295 is a great way to get that registered. Thank you, GoDaddy. We have links in the show notes, too, you guys can use to make sure that code is automatically attributed. That way you don't have to worry about maybe missing it in the checkout box. All right, Mr. Dominic, now our first topic today happens to bring us to our first caller this week. Now, on the line, we have extraordinaire from the chat room, Nick. Hi there, Nick.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, man, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
One of the things that we were talking about in the pre-show that sounded like it kind of piqued your interest was Mr. Dominic has been floating this theory that is now being picked up in the mainstream press as well, that Google is sort of losing control of Android. Mr. Dominic, do you want to sort of chime in on your perspective here?
Yeah, so, I mean, we've talked about this on previous shows, but, really the thing that really set me off this week was those market share numbers came out, and it turns out, at least in the North American and European markets, 8 out of 10 people using Android are using Samsung Android. And it's getting to the point where Android doesn't need Google anymore, and I'm questioning whether Google can really affect any severe influence on these manufacturers. And now, of course, 2 months later, the Verge and other publications have decided to agree with me and not give me credit for it. Not bitter.
Now, is that Nick, what do you think, Nick? Is this fair to say when, I have my brand new Note 2 here, and I just absolutely love my Note 2. But I'm
completely jealous of it as well.
But I think in reality, I feel like it's 10% Samsung software and 90% Google software on it. Do you believe? Do you agree with what Mr. Dominic's proposing here? When in reality, it's still not like 90% Google code.
Wow, that's a tough one. I think, the Note in particular has a lot of weird things going on with TouchWiz, and I actually looked into the Note just to see, if it was feasible, and especially after having to go through hell and back to get my ancient Droid X rooted, I wanted to know, how would I have to go through the process to get a Note 2 rooted if I wanted to get it? And one of the things I've learned through most of this process is that if you flash a new ROM onto a phone, you usually have to use the manufacturer's kernel, not the stock kernel. So the fact that they've done a lot with TouchWiz probably speaks to the fact that, they have a bit of a vice grip on Android, at least on their own phones.
Well, that's actually probably a fair point, because I was thinking, if I wanted to root it and flash it with one newer version of Android or something like that, I would actually miss out on a few sort of important usability features, mostly centered around the S Pen and how it integrates with Android. But there's a few other things too that I would no longer have. And when you look at the sales ratio, like Michael, do you remember what it is? Is it like it's more than 40% of the market is now Samsung hardware? And
I think it's more than that.
It might be 70
worldwide.
Actually, right?
Worldwide, it's less because there's obviously a lot of cheaper manufacturers. But in North America in particular, it's basically a Samsung-Apple race. And if you just look at Android, it is Samsung's market.
Yeah, there are new Coke and Pepsi, aren't they?
Right. And again, if you look at the international numbers, it is a lower percentage, but still 40-something% of a worldwide market share. Right, and together
they actually represent more than 100% of the market share, because all of the other handset manufacturers are losing money.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Nick mentions he has the the Droid X. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's just a bad call. Where Google bought Motorola. Where's my kick-ass Motorola device to compete with the Galaxy S4? Right. That's why I'm just starting to think that, and this will actually lead into our next topic, that Android isn't the priority it needed to be.
Well, wasn't there were ruminations of a Nexus 5. Who was doing that? Was that LG or
I believe, or does LG do the 4?
Yeah, they do the 4 now.
4. I don't know who's doing
the 4.
Well,
yeah, I heard they're trying to do a 5, but it's all rumor and scuttlebutt and hearsay, so I can't really speak to that much.
Right. And even with the Nexus line, I mean, the our demographic is disproportionately saturated with Nexus devices because we're nerds and we obviously know the difference.
Right.
But Joe Consumer is probably buying a Samsung device these days.
It would. Well, the numbers would seem to suggest
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Nick, before we let
Well,
you go, is there?
can I play devil's advocate before you go on?
Totally. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So if Joe Consumer is buying a Samsung device as opposed to, say, a shitty Motorola device like I have, or say an LG, or I'm sorry, not LG, HTC phone that's heavily customized, is that necessarily such a bad thing?
No, so actually I wrote a blog post where I don't think what's happening to Android is going to really affect Android developers at all.
Oh, okay.
Because as long as Android remains with strong market share and is still around, you can still sell your apps. It just might not be on the Google Play Store. But it does affect Google, right? Because if Samsung has such a disproportionate percentage of the market share, it's very hard to tell them no.
Right, but this is as opposed to, say, 4 years ago when HTC had this huge vice grip on the market that I recall. I don't actually totally remember.
It was never as damning as it is now,
HTC used
though.
to have a larger market share, and those phones were absolute garbage.
Yeah, but there's a few important differences, right? The market has evolved. Android is starting to diverge a bit more from Google's stock implementation, and most importantly, HTC's you put it, vice grip wasn't as strong as Samsung's is now.
Right.
And Google was still partnered with Verizon to do the Motorola line, which had a lot, which was a second, and qualifying the numbers in that it was only on one carrier was actually a strong competitor to HTC. The problem is now the carriers. We talked about last week. I don't know if you listened. Firefox OS and.
Of course, I listened.
Oh, very good. And how the carriers are kind of shopping for another operating system that they can control more. And let's remember the history of Android if we're going to go back. Android was going nowhere until Verizon decided they needed to fight Apple.
Yeah, because they didn't have the iPhone.
Right. And so once Verizon did the Droid push, we had the HTC come in on the GSM carriers and Verizon as well.
Yeah, because before then we had the G1, but it was not selling. Not like the Droid line did.
So it's a little different market, and also Samsung isn't quite. Samsung is already flexing his muscles, saying, "Well, hey, we can make a Windows phone, we can make a Tizen phone." They're not exactly married to it like Motorola and Verizon were with the Droid campaign. And it's my theory is that we're at the point where Android needs Samsung more than Samsung needs Android.
And I think the other thing, the other variable here is Samsung selling Android phones to make a profit selling Android phones, or are they selling Android phones to make a profit building and manufacturing and selling their CPUs and system on a chips? Because let's not forget, pretty much everybody who's not shipping a Samsung product has Samsung parts in their product. And that is that business is basically they make money on everything that ships, including the iPhone. So that might potentially even be a larger business for them.
I believe that it is, but they obviously, and there was I think it was a New York Times or Wall Street Journal article. The brand Samsung has gone from just a obscure shipping and chip manufacturer to a premier mobile brand.
They doubled their handset market share in 2012. Right. So their momentum.
But that's important. Samsung is the premier mobile brand, not Android. Right? So a consumer may go into a store thinking, I'm going to replace my Samsung with another Samsung and maybe not care about Android. And that's probably a little further out on the limb than I would want to go. But just on the numbers, it's going to be tough for Google to tell Samsung anything.
Nick, any closing thoughts before we let you
go? Well, going back to last week's episode where you were talking about Tizen, just to kind of sum up my thoughts, I kind of feel like what you were describing was sort of a feature phone plus. And I'm just kind of curious, I understand that you don't want it to be controlled by the carriers. And you don't want it to be controlled by the developers for the carriers instead of the developers in the ecosystem as a whole. But I'm just kind of curious, from a consumer perspective, what's actually what are the bad things about having an extended feature phone at this point? Because at this point you have either very expensive smartphones, or you have these dinky, gimped little flip phones, and there's no real middle ground there at all.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a certain segment of the market that it's not bad for, right? As long as these consumers in question don't care about, getting the latest hot app, then Tizen and even Firefox OS will probably do the job. But we've kind of shown in other markets that, usually these products don't last. Like even the iPhone is going to China, right? And it's a big status symbol in China. I don't know that as Samsung and Apple and HTC start to lower prices, I don't know that they just don't eat this market unless the carriers prop it up. But yeah, it's my negative comments were more about a developer perspective that, we already know the deal with Google and Apple. We don't know what kind of deal, Telefonica and, whatever the other European carriers or even African carriers are called.
Yeah. All right, Nick. Well, thank you for calling in.
Thanks for having me.
All right, man. Have a good one.
All right.
Now,
Take it easy.
Mr. Dominic, we have another caller on the line. Who is
already?
Who is our other caller here?
So I'm known as Decrezi in the chat. Well, DACRESNI.
Hello, sir.
And I'm just wondering if it's more the other guys aren't doing a very good job. I mean, Sony has done so many great phones, beautiful looking hardware, and then they don't have any apps. I mean, they don't have any PlayStation apps. They're totally missing out on all that power that Sony has, and other hardware vendors have power too.
And I think just to kind of echo your point,
behind Android,
they're
pulling out or some nonsense.
Just to echo your point, I think one of the reasons HTC's had such hard problem, with the exception of the HTC One, is their devices after the Evo were completely underwhelming for a long time, and they just left the market open for HTC. And to be fair, people were calling it like a year before it happened. So there is definitely an element to that. And I actually don't even think Samsung makes the best hardware. They do now make very good hardware, but like when they first started dominating, it was kind of plasticky and crap. So it's a very fair point.
Yeah, it is a fair point. I mean, HTC at one time, as Nick was even saying, was a strong contender, and they did lose the market because of their own laziness.
What were we going to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, then there's also the fact that early on, Android got this sort of bad rep about being, people would ship, they would do nothing about hardware and then ship Android on for any device that they probably licensed from China. I actually met two guys who actually decided to do this. And this is in the middle of St. Louis. This isn't even in Silicon Valley. And they were actually trying this. And they were trying to fight waking up from sleep. And this is the kind of thing that a lot of people were trying to do, is just ship Android on the device and hope that it sells.
Right.
And tarnish Android's reputation.
Yeah, I definitely kind of.
Google even cares.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It definitely did kind of take a bit of a.
I think Google definitely cared, though. The problem is the way Android is licensed. Google, they resisted. Well, there was a controversy when the Honeycomb tablets came out. And the obvious reason for them to resist, they said it was the quality of the code wasn't up to par, and they were embarrassed. Let's be real. They didn't want cheap Chinese or cheap, even cheap American, just cheap, crappy tablets being released to compete with the Blessed tablets. And unfortunately, because of the way it's licensed, there's not a lot they can do to prevent that.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, any other thoughts before I let you go? No?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, thanks for calling in, buddy.
All right.
He kind of made an interesting point, though, is because now that Android's kind of had its rep beaten, maybe Google does care. Maybe Google feels like they could hit the reset button. I mean, there's been some recent management change-ups at Google. Yep,
I was just going to say, this segues into our next. So Andy Rubin has been replaced by Sundar Pichai. And it's not that Sundar Pichai is now the Android head. He is still the ChromeOS head. And Android now reports to Chrome.
So Android is now kind of snapped in underneath. There he goes.
Oh,
that was fun for a second. I got all excited, and then he just went away. So Android now sits under the Chrome mantle, I guess you could say. Like it's
well, they're under the direction of the Chrome management, right?
Yeah, and
That's
some people are interpreting
to me,
that to mean some big changes are ahead for Android.
and you know, not to toot my own horn again, but I kind of called this, right? I mean, how many times have I said, you know, Android is?
Oh, here we go. Hello caller. Who is it?
Hello, I'm back.
Hey, Nick.
I hope you'll have me for some more time.
Sure, why not?
Man, I'm trying to remember what I was going to say before.
Was it about Android going underneath Chrome?
No, there was a point made right before you guys switched topics.
About the rep of Android being tarnished.
Oh yeah, no. Actually, what I found is really interesting because at the same time, we've been actually looking at everything. We've been looking at Ting, and then we've been also looking at AT&T and T-Mobile because, quite frankly, anything is better than $200 under Verizon.
Fair play.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, in looking at AT&T and T-Mobile, that expands your look into any phone that's international, including Chinese phones. And, you know, after perusing many a Chinese phone, I got to say, you know, don't poo-poo on the Chinese. They have some pretty nice phones coming out.
Yeah.
They certainly have higher-end phones, but you have to remember that in the last, 4 years or whatever since Android has been out, they've also released tons of crap that has saturated the market, particularly outside of Europe and the United States.
At the same time, if you're going and looking at that, you have to... It's assumed that you already have some degree of knowledge about phones, and you have some degree of being able to discern which specs are good and which specs are absolute shit.
I'm not sure that I would assume that for everyone buying those phones. I know lots of people who just buy whatever phone is free or cheap.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's where it kind of falls down. Me or you could go to one of these, retailers who does sell those Chinese phones, those no-name brands. So you're talking about basically the no-name brands, right?
Right.
Right. And we could tell, okay, this has a crap processor, this is no good. But I think there's a lot, think about it like the people who buy the $600 HP at Best Buy, right? This is the same people who buy the crap computer when if they really spent another $100 or were just a more diligent shopper, could have done better.
All right, fair point.
All right, Nick. Well, thanks for calling in, man.
I just feel like it's, a little bit out of the way, but
and I'm sure their reputation will get better as time goes on.
Huh?
I'm sure as the technology improves and as they release more high-end devices, the reputation will get better there too.
Oh no, there's actually one that's really praised right now. The Oppo Find 4, I think it is.
Okay. Yeah,
and
that sounds like
it's like this
Oppo sounds familiar.
$400 phone that's coming out of China, which rivals the Note 2.
Very nice.
Well, see, Chris, you bought the wrong phone. That's what he's telling you.
Thanks for the perspective, Nick. All right, Nick.
Well, it wouldn't work on Ting, so then you wouldn't be able to use it there.
Hey, I love my Note. So I'm happy. In fact, while we're talking about Ting, why don't we take a minute to hit the pause button, because it's been brought up a couple of times. Ting.com is sponsoring this week's episode of the Coder Radio program. And
I love Ting.
I really love Ting, and I'm so happy now with my Note 2. And let me tell you something. Ting is mobile that makes sense. It's no BS service. They're an MVNO of the nationwide Sprint network here in the US of A. They got no contracts, no early termination fees. I love that because I hate contracts. The other thing that I really love is there's no hidden charges, no surprises on your bill. Just you get what you pay for and then any applicable taxes in your area. But let me tell you why I really signed up for Ting. Besides the no contract, I think that was probably number one. And the fact that I could bring my own device was really cool. They have a limited beta test for that right now. I brought over my Evo, and then after I tried out the service, I said I like it so much I'm going to get a Note 2. And I love it. But here's what I really, really like. It is fantastic. You go in there, you set the plan you want, and I just love this mix and match approach. And here it is. Built-in tethering and hotspot. I don't even know how they do that. I look at this price that is less than I would have paid on one of the big carriers, and it is feature-rich. It has the features I want that I would have had to pay double that for. That's what blows me away with Ting, and what's great is I can amp it up and turn it down as I need. If I say I need 500 minutes and I'll only end up using 100 minutes, Ting.com will automatically credit me for what I didn't use, apply it to my next bill. It's fantastic. If I accidentally go over, maybe I've had a really productive month and I'm on the phone making deals all the time. Not a big deal. They'll just charge me an extra 2 cents a minute, which is absolutely reasonable. And I can custom set my plan so I have no text messages. If I want to use something like Kick Messenger or Google Voice, I can say, you know what, this month I'm going to need 3 gigabytes. This month I only need 500 megabytes. I can change it on the fly. I'm not going to get a fee for doing that. There's no contract that I'm going to reset. And that's what I love it. But also, for those of us who have family members, or maybe you're a small business, because Ting is fantastic for small business too, you know you don't want to end up being the person that has to do all the tech support. You want to be able to just give them a phone number that they can call when they have questions. This is a great advantage to Ting, and this is something that sets them apart. If you call them during business hours on the East Coast from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., just call 1-855-TING-FTW, and you'll actually talk to a person, and that person you talk to can actually help. It's like something maybe all businesses should try.
So, Chris, I called Ting.
Yeah. How'd
I
that
had
go?
2 Dixie. Well, I had my newest device. It's 2 Dixie cups and some tinsel.
Yeah, were they able to give you support for that?
They said they could hook it up. They said, you just get a keyboard, a Bluetooth keyboard, and they've got me covered.
Very nice. Very nice.
Can't tether it without plugging in another piece of tinsel, though. So there's a little bit there, but
I'm like a Nix-a-lot in our chat room. I was paying over $120 a month for another carrier. And there was 2 phones on our account, and I didn't have as much data as I have now. I didn't have built-in hotspot and tethering, which when you have a lot of Wi-Fi devices, having one device that has good high-speed connectivity that can do tethering, and you don't have that guilt associated with the fact that, because see, a lot of the times the tethering is as much as the entire data packages on Ting, and so then you have this guilt of the fact that you're paying X amount of money to have this always-on service that you're not really using as much as you should be. You don't have that problem with Ting. I love it.
all right, great.
There you go. Ting.com. Visit codaradio.ting.com to take $25 off your device or get a $25 service credit. And, go visit that. Let them know that you're paying attention. Let them know you appreciate supporting Coda Radio. Go check out what they have to offer. codaradio.ting.com.
All right, then. So let's move on to Chrome is greater than Android.
All right. I'm going to let Nick go. Thank you very much, Nick.
Nick, we'll talk to you in a few minutes.
Nick was standing by on the hotline.
No, seriously, thanks for calling.
All right, so ChromeOS. You think that Google wants something? This is what I'm thinking. Google wants something they've created, something that feels innately googly, that has the Google DNA in it, and they've always been a web-first company. And let's be honest, Android is more like an app-centric.
Yeah, so for me, that's the bigger thing, right? Android is, and I even called it in my post, glorified Java. Really. Google has always been about pushing the web, pushing web technologies, HTML5, JavaScript, CSS, you name it, that's where they are. They have the Dart initiative, which somebody cleverly posted on Google Plus that I hadn't even considered as part of this.
Okay.
And Android's always been, I felt like they bought Android because they needed an answer. But Android is kind of an odd duckling for Google, right? I mean, don't get, they've done great things with it, but if you look at all Google's other initiatives, they really all focus on web technologies and making the web all you need.
Ooh, Shane's calling in.
Shane is calling.
Hello, Shane.
Hey.
Hi, Shane. How's it going?
Now,
Well,
Shane, you're,
yourself.
just so we know for the feed, you're an Android developer yourself, right?
Yeah, I do a bit of Android development.
So how do
haven't
you
been doing
feel?
much
All
recently.
right. We'll do Dr. Phil. How does this make you feel?
I feel grand because I do quite a lot of web development as well. And
He's like, I'm hedging my bets, so whatever.
yeah, I actually recently went to a hackathon where they did the Chrome apps. So they're actually developing a way, I think, to move, like if they want to, from Android to Chrome or from Chrome. Yeah, no, from Android to Chrome.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, and then that's also what I put in my post. That my bet, and I would wonder if you would agree, having gone to that hackathon, that within the next year and a half, the Android Chrome will be able to run Chrome apps well.
I would honestly say so.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That'll be the gateway.
So does Chrome on Android almost become like a runtime environment of its own?
I would think so.
I think you guys might be crazy. I mean, Android, I don't know if you've noticed, but Android is a smash success, and the Play Store is stronger and better than it's ever been, and all of their content around it is stronger and better than it's ever been, and they have a ginormous market penetration that's constantly feeding them data signals. And the one thing that Google loves more than anything else in the entire world is data signals. And that's all Android is. It's a big sensor in your pocket. And I don't see them moving away from it at all.
But there's no reason they can't do that with a Chrome-based device.
So what would it be like? Would it be like? I mean, are you guys picturing like Android 5.0 ships, and it's maybe the launcher is replaced with just a full-screen Chrome browser?
No, because that wouldn't work. But
no, that's not what I'm predicting. So mine is a 5-year bet that within 5 years, Android will just be, Google's not next Nexus, but within 5 years, they will be a Chrome phone, and that they're just going to start pushing Chrome devices. Remember,
so they don't even call it Android anymore. It's a reboot of the OS.
It's different, right? We also heard rumors of supposed Google stores and some leaked documents about that. And did you notice all the branding for Google was Chrome branding? If you believe those documents, it does jive.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, how does this play in and fit into Glass? Because it seems like
is the creepiest thing on the planet.
It seems like Android is an obvious companion to fit in with Glass. Glass pairs to your Android phone, and they kind of buddy up, and Glass almost could become a heads-up display for the Android device. How does that fit in at all with this web app system? I think what you're seeing a company who's trying a little bit of everything here, and I don't know if I totally agree they're gonna kill off Android. I just don't see it.
Well, I don't think Glass really matters at the moment. I think it's more of a bet by Google. And, if it works out, great. But if it doesn't, who cares?
I think what Google figured out, the thing that Steve Jobs was actually really good at was piping the rumor mill to get the stock price up. And now that Tim Cook has doubled down on security and isn't stoking the rumor mill all the time, guess what? Their stock has gone way down. Meanwhile, Google's out there teasing Glass like nobody's business, and Google's stock is going crazy.
So Google's doing more than manipulating stock with Glass. They're also testing regulators, right? Because already in France, there's some trouble about Glass. And I know I'm going to come off as a bit of an old fogey here, but Glass scares the crap out of me. Like, I would be very comfortable if Glass was just said, no, you can't do that. That's too, because Glass, let's be honest, this Glass is just a way for them to get even more data, right? And it's passive data capture. And it's not, but to your other point of Glass but interface with Android, it's really easy to just write a HTML5 interface to parse JSON or whatever type of encrypted data Glass sends to the device. So that's not...
In fact, the Chrome apps have a Bluetooth API already built in, so I can't see a reason why they couldn't hook it up using that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But I think you're right, Chris, that their money is from data. And, I think it's less about playing the rumor mill and more about... Because let's be honest, the EU loves to slap down American companies. Let's see what those Europeans do. Let's see if we're on trial in Germany again.
Right. That's right. With the Wi-Fi.
Why mass produce them if you're going to be, banned from a whole continent?
Yeah, I would say the
Shane, you have a bit of an accent, so I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Serious issues with parts of Glass.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, because I don't. To be honest, even in America, I see some government intervention on Glass because that's just it's too shameless, right?
Yeah. Well, the other thing is. You can record stuff in a public area, but as soon as you walk into someone else's home or a business, then it starts becoming a legal gray area, whether you're allowed to even have it on.
Well, I mean, since this is Coda Radio, you guys are being the naysayers here, but let's look at the potential. If they're successful, it is a brand new marketplace for developers to write applications for. And just like getting in on the smartphones early on was a huge boon.
It's going to be too hard. I mean, even now with smartphone apps aimed at children, California passed a law regarding privacy and how you have to handle data. That is, since you can't really control where your app goes if you're selling in the United States, effectively federal law for any developer based in the U.S., right? If you violate this law, you can be summoned and subpoenaed to California, regardless of where you live. So as these privacy concerns continue to grow, the legal cost of development, the cost of all this added security, is really going to make it hard for anybody who doesn't have deep pockets to develop, certainly for glass.
Yeah, and the barrier for entry for glass would be much, much higher. Like the, I think the glass devices are like $1,500 now, where obviously I only needed a $30 Android device in order to start doing development for it.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah. Well, they'll probably come up with something for that. Google's pretty good about,
And you know, I can already see the court cases where someone's in a store, walks into a fitting room with glass on their shirt recording, right?
Well,
there will be fast intervention on that.
So let's switch back to the Chrome conversation, and I want to talk a little bit here about, and I want to, why we got Shane on the line, because Shane's also written for other platforms. I guess I look at what Google would be doing would be sort of saying, okay, everyone, for the last 7 years, because we're saying this is going to be a few years down the road, for whatever, it's 7 years, 5 years, you've been writing these apps for Android, and they're all in Java. But guess what? We're switching over to this new HTML5 whiz-bang platform, and you have to transition. I mean, is that what they're going to have to tell people? Does that
one word, Dart?
How does Dart change the story there?
Well, and I didn't even think of this, but someone posted it to me on Google Plus. Dart is, object-oriented JavaScript if you need it to be. That will be the baby step. Just like TypeScript is the baby step for C# developers trying to get into this web world, Dart is the answer to Java. Shane, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, I honestly think we're underestimating the serious amount of HTML apps that are already on the Android Play Store.
Yeah.
A lot of the apps on the Play Store aren't written in Java, and they're already written in JavaScript, so there would be no porting necessary.
Fair point. I mean, I'm thinking of some apps I'm thinking of things like Pocket Cast, right, which has a lot of media-rich handling, does videos and audio, and it downloads feeds, and it refreshes in the background. And I'm just thinking this seems like it's a full-on application. I mean, it's as full-fledged as an application as I have on my desktop. And
so all of those things could be done in HTML5 that you've listed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing is that the Chrome app APIs have a lot of interesting capabilities to allow you to do extra things on the desktop, and more probably on the mobile, because they're the same APIs for the mobile.
So if they pull this off, then in theory they could also push that down to the desktop versions of Chrome. So if you had apps that ran in Chrome, they would probably run on the desktop version, right?
Yeah, in fact, that's what they're focusing on at the moment. They haven't actually. The mobile version is the one that isn't fully working, but I actually have an app written at the hackathon that runs fully on my Ubuntu desktop on Windows and on Mac. And
they could, in theory,
it wouldn't look any different from a native app.
So they could, in theory, tweak Chrome on iOS to become this runtime as well. If Apple would let them, you could even.
Yeah. I mean, good luck with that, though.
But it does mean, I'm sure, yeah. Even as I started to say it sounded crazy. But it would mean that you, as a developer, could write. It would truly be an app that ran on desktops and on mobile because it'd all be running within Chrome.
So I think you're skirting the real issue. Are Chrome apps going to be, HTML, like kind of like the WinJS situation, where it's technically JavaScript, but it's such a proprietary API that you can't just port it over easily? Or is it going to be a cleaner HTML5 implementation where it does work in, let's say, a Firefox-based phone with little to no effort?
I think
that's the issue you're actually getting at.
I would think it would be like the Win32 API, because even the APIs there at the moment, for instance, you can't access HTML5 local storage. You have to use Chrome.something.local storage, and there's quite another weird, differences between the API that really shouldn't be there, because you could use the HTML5 version. But we'll see what happens in the end, because obviously it's only the beta and there's been no real releases.
And the other thing is, Chrome is moving a lot faster than the standards bodies, and they're also adding dedicated hooks into Google Drive in particular, which is currently not working. So.
Right, which is down even still. Well, that is fascinating, you guys. I'm kind of beginning to change my opinion on it, because they would have such a huge benefit. They could become the store of applications for the internet, in a sense. I mean, they could become the app store for the world.
Yeah, but that might be a bit scary, Shane, considering it would be controlled by only one company.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very scary. It's very scary. I mean, Google is already very, very scary.
But yeah, that's why, I'm a little cautious about them, because So I have another theory, and Shane, I'd love to hear what you agree. I know we've kept you on longer than anybody else, but I love you.
Oh,
Nick
that's
might
okay.
have him beat. I don't know. It's probably neck and neck at this point.
It's purely platonic, though. So the Chrome Pixel randomly has a touchscreen that doesn't make any sense, right? I don't know if you've had your hands on it or read the reviews. My thought is the next step in that line is now a 10-inch tablet with Chrome on it with some more optimized UI for touch. Every year, we're going to get closer and closer to a Chrome phone. So we're going to do it slow.
They'll come at it from the tablet down.
Exactly, and just like Microsoft tried to.
I don't know.
Very difficult to pull off, though, I'd say, because the issue with the web is that not many people bother to have a touch UI.
Yeah, it's rough. It's the worst part. I mean, I use the web browser a ton on my mobile phone, but it's always a little hit and miss. And there's problems there where they force you into mobile sites that don't work correctly constantly. It's pretty broken still.
But I think they'll be okay with that, right? Because if they need to build a better Chrome App Store, they can just toss some money at developers.
And they'll highlight and feature the sites that
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, forget about sites. But what about the Chrome App Store?
Right. Yeah. That's
right.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Well, Shane, any other thoughts before we move on?
No, it's grand. I'll see you. Thanks for having me.
Dude, thank you.
No worries.
Thanks for all the awesome contributions you've made to the community over the years and all of the hard work you do and always showing up and chatting with us. We really appreciate it. So thank you for calling in. And your audio quality is great. Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. And your mic is great, too. So thanks for that.
Yes.
All right, Shane, have a great one.
Bye.
Cheers. I'm starting to become convinced by you, Mr. Dominic. I can't believe it. I was so prepared to go to the mat over this one, but
all I needed to do was phone a friend, baby.
Before do you have any other thoughts on that? Because there's one more little topic.
No, you know what? I think we should move on to the next topic, right? We'll be discussing this, I have a feeling, every few weeks.
Well, we've been very Google heavy. And so should we talk a little bit about this Windows 8 story that kind of blew up over the weekend? I don't even know if a lot of people had a chance to process it.
I found out about the story this morning, and I was quite surprised.
Yeah, by the weekend, I might actually mean last night. I mean, it's very fresh. So there's rumors circulating on the web right now that Microsoft has announced or will be announcing plans to end support for Windows Phone 8 on July 2014, as well as Windows Phone 7, 7.8 in 2014.
Yeah, so this hit me like a ton of bricks. Is
Microsoft throwing in the towel here?
No, I don't think it's that. I mean, that would be silly. I quickly posted to Google Plus about it and asking kind of, does anyone know anything more? And naturally, I got the few joking, haha, they're bailed out again kind of thing.
Haha, you picked the wrong horse again.
Yeah, but I think a lot of it has to do with Windows 9 or whatever they're going to, so Project Blue, right? This is what everybody's talking about. This is what the Microsoft guys are salivating about. The problem is no one knows well, certainly some people know, but the public doesn't know. The larger development community doesn't know what Project Blue is.
Project Blue is sort of like what Windows 7 was to Windows Vista, am I right? Like it's like we're gonna iterate. Yeah,
we don't know. I mean, I'm not willing to say that. That's the rumor, but I have no knowledge of this. And,
so Microsoft has a real big problem right now, and that is they leak like a sieve. But they
leak scary information.
Well, but then they won't talk about it because we don't comment on rumors because now we're like Apple. And the thing is like, so it leaves developers constantly in this lurch. Like, how long were we talking about the rumored death of XNA before we actually got the announcement? Like weeks, right?
It was a solid month or so.
I want to say it was more than that, to be honest with you. I want to say you were talking about it in the summer, and we just talked about it a few episodes ago. So, then
the real risk here.
How do you bet on that horse if you're writing something today that won't ship for a year? How do you know? There's no frickin' way I'd bet on that horse. No frickin' way I'd bet on that horse.
Well, that's the problem, right? It shakes confidence in the developer community.
Exactly.
And, I mean, you can say that even Windows Phone 7 still works on, those apps still work on Windows 8, but they're second-class citizens.
But they already have, okay, so if you came to me and said, you can only, we got Josh calling in. All right, here we go. Well, hey there, Josh.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. So do you have any thoughts on this Microsoft ending support for Windows Phone 8?
Yeah, I definitely do. I actually picked up, I don't know how it was free, but I got a Nokia Lumia 920.
Oh, how is the 920?
really great hardware. The OS is very underwhelming, and I kind of regret getting it.
Oh,
I wish
You
I
didn't
would have
pay for
gotten probably an S3.
ouch.
Wow. Okay.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
What's been the major? I've never even used Windows Phone 8. So what was like? What smacked you in the face is like not living up to what you expected.
well, I mean, I didn't expect the app availability to be all that
Yeah.
amazing, but the fact that I actually had to buy an app to watch, YouTube videos, was disappointing. I mean, the fact that there's no native apps by, say, Google, and I've over the years, because I predominantly have an Android. I used to have an Android phone. I got really hooked on Google-related services, like Gmail, Google Drive, and
Yep.
Yeah,
well,
so that's the problem I had with my HTC X.
Oh, you ran into the same problem as the Google services weren't integrated well enough.
Well, I think and Josh, correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like you got your phone far after I got mine.
yeah, I got my
Yeah.
phone. I believe it was early January.
Okay, so what happened to me is when I first got the phone, it was lovely. It did the proper email notification thing like iOS and like Android does, right? So it wasn't a regression in functionality for my day-to-day flow.
Okay, nice.
Then I guess Microsoft and Google had that weird spat.
Right.
And now
Oh,
it
yeah.
will only poll every 20 minutes, and it manually polls, and it's not good for the battery, and I feel very out of touch with it. It's just not,
It's not
Yeah,
I
active
don't-
sync.
I
It's not
believe-
active sync.
yeah. And then the
Right.
calendar stuff is a nightmare for me. So I'm, yeah.
Don't even get me started with that. But
Yeah.
but as far as the email polling, I do it over IMAP, first off. So I wasn't terribly affected by that. But they were killing off, I believe. I'm trying to remember what the service was, EAS or I don't know. But it's something that Microsoft relied heavily on for Windows Phone that they're canceling, kind of like they're canceling CalDev. But apparently
yeah.
Microsoft, like a month later, said, "Oh, hey, we heard that Google's apparently going to be killing off some issues related to the email polling. It's some sort of infrastructure. I'll have to look it up." So it was like after a month, they're like, "Okay, we'll release a patch later this year for it."
Well, that's interesting because that sort of goes back to, when you have a product that's based on somebody else's service, and then that service changes the game on you, like Twitter has to many app developers, or like Google's doing to Microsoft with ActiveSync, or like they're doing with Google Calendar API, or like they're doing with Reader. It ends up affecting you, the end user, and I think the problem is that Microsoft has this war they're fighting where they're dependent on services to be provided by people who don't like them, in this case Google, or whoever it might be, or they're up against a massive market share dominance that is almost impossible, or they're up against this constant rumor, leaks, non-confirmation news that comes out of there that leaves developers in a lurch. And these are all major points that they have to fight that I don't think they have an answer
The problem
for.
is they never leak anything positive, ever. Like, they never leak, oh, by the way, we're going to guarantee, that your app will be approved in 7 days. Like, if they leaked that, that'd be fantastic.
Right.
But they always leak, hey, we're killing support. But they never also leak, oh, but this is the plan forward. Like, if it were me and I had people relying on my APIs, I'd say, okay, gee, that leaked. But you know what? We have a way forward for
You know what they should be doing is they have a Windows Phone with some badass Connect technology integrated into it in the lab, and they could be leaking that just like Google's out there showing off Glass, getting hype, right? Or Apple's leaking out rumors of the watch. Nothing's coming out of Microsoft. That's a great point.
As far
I think the
as
watch
far
is
as the quote unquote announcement, which I just heard on on Coder Radio about them possibly killing.
Well, it's not announced yet, but
It wasn't,
It was leaked.
Potentially a rumor that they're killing it in July of 2014. One, that doesn't surprise me, and two, it doesn't really concern me as an app developer because I'm going to be releasing my two-step authenticator for my business, for Windows Phone, for Android, Firefox OS, Ubuntu Phone, so on and so forth.
How did you develop that? I'm just curious. I mean, if you can't say because it's an employer, don't say. But is it
No,
HTML5?
no.
Is that how you're getting that?
So it's all native because
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So right now I'm only developing for Windows Phone, but I'm getting familiarized with Java. But I might use PhoneGap for for Ubuntu Phone and Firefox OS because that just makes sense as a web developer. As far as development goes, and them killing off Windows Phone potentially mid next year, it doesn't really worry me because with their current SDK, you could already deploy your app to 7.8 and Windows Phone 8. When they came out with the Windows Phone 8 SDK, they made an easy process just to convert 7.8 to 8 apps. So I think if they're going to be releasing, say, a Windows Phone 9 or 8.5 next year, then I think they'll make it easier to...
That's an interesting point. And the other thing to keep in mind is the way Microsoft does this is if they release a Windows 8.5, which I bet they would, this support clock then clicks back to another 18 months. So 8.5 will have 18 months of support.
Right, but so the other rumor / leak is that they're not doing a Windows Phone 9, right? They're merging Metro and Windows Phone, or I'm sorry, they're merging RT.
That would make sense because a significant portion of the Windows 8 and Windows Phone 8 libraries are the same.
Yeah.
So the question to me really is, if that's the truth, which seems like the most reasonable thing they could do, and you're releasing a product for yourself, are you better off just waiting so you can optimize for that API, and just so you can kind of make sure they're not, doing something else? Because they have a track record, right? I mean, they've killed a number of platforms that I've personally developed on. So maybe it's a little bit of my, once bitten, twice shy kind of thing. But listen, I use Silverlight for the phone, and they killed Silverlight.
Oh,
right?
I knew as soon as they released Silverlight, I'm like, I'm not even going to touch this because I know they're going to kill it. Especially when I heard about, there being issues with, say, was it Moonlight? Like not even
and
a
that's
significant portion being ported over to
web,
Moonlight. I was like, I'm not going to even touch this.
Yeah, it's a tough. I guess I'm having a crisis of faith, Josh. You're a little more level-headed than me, but
I think it's a matter of, as we get busier, we have less and less patience for the rug getting pulled out from underneath us, right? And isn't that kind of it? Like, you're looking at it, if you're looking at it more from like I have X amount of hours to earn X amount of dollars, I've got to strategically spend those hours.
Right.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I am a little bitter for them pulling the rug, the 2 other times they did.
Hey, before we let Josh go, he's got some questions he typed into the chat here for me. He had a question regarding maybe, is there an alternative to the Facebook gatekeeper? Josh, what do you mean by the Facebook gatekeeper?
Right. So Facebook has this software that they use. It's more of a framework that they utilize for PHP called Facebook Gatekeeper.
Oh, it's literally called that. Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And it's not open source, so hence why I'm wondering if there's an alternative.
What's it do?
What Facebook Gatekeeper does is it allows them to set up flags for different users to roll out specific features. Say, like, people in New Zealand might have one column timeline. Some people might have open graph search, which is what I have, and I freaking hate it. Then they'll have new timeline. So I'm wondering if there's an open source alternative to that, because I already looked on like alternative 2, and
I severely doubt it.
Yeah. I was thinking I might have to.
There's a Quora thread on how does the gatekeeper service work and if it can be replaced, but there's not a lot of action on it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Because I think that's something they'd keep under wraps.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. Well, you also wanted to ask about maybe a little Code Journal for Linux update.
Yeah.
Oh no! It's
I'm
Josh
demanding.
from Google Plus.
I'm demanding live. You tell me about Code Journal for Linux. Where is it, and why haven't you given it to me yet?
I love it. Josh is here to do some business.
Okay, so here's what's up. I haven't done it yet because I think it's becoming Code Journal for Ubuntu, and I'm not sure which way Ubuntu's going.
Why don't you develop with Qt and then use OpenSUSE's build service to deploy to all Linux distributions?
Because I've been meaning to look into that and haven't.
That
I
actually
haven't looked into the open source.
So, but that would solve building the packages, but that doesn't solve like if Michael's talking about integrating with
so the
lenses.
big thing that people like on the Mac version is the notification center integration, right? People are essentially buying it for that. Is what it seems like. At least that's the positive feedback I get is all about that.
Right.
So doing that on different window managers would require it to be duplicated.
Right. You'd have to do it for KDE support and then Unity support, unfortunately, and then
and I think what would happen is I'd probably end up just doing it for Unity.
Right.
Yeah, that whole libnotify split thing really sucks.
Yeah, and that's what the real crux is, because there's also, the Mac one is written entirely in Cocoa and Objective-C.
Right.
So there's going to be no code reuse. There was a mono prototype at one point, which was fairly bad.
Right. I was contemplating writing some native stuff in mono develop.
Yeah, the dbus API was what I was thinking too. Is it seems like if you just do the notification, because I have applications that just use dbus to send a xnotify pop-up, and it works under Unity or XFCE or GNOME or KDE.
So xnotify Unity can actually use that?
I don't know exactly how it works. I think it's done through dbus, but yeah.
See, so that's the other thing. It seems like
it's not as quite slick, because on Unity there's like this little launcher that starts for a second to display the notification, then it quits again, but it's pretty seamless. It's definitely functional.
Well, Josh, let me ask you this. You don't run Unity, do you?
No, I run Elementary OS and then Windows
so the
8,
problem
obviously,
is there is
Windows
a group
Phone
of
8
people
development.
who keep emailing and posting to me about the Linux version. And I have approximately, between permutations of distros and window managers, probably 10.
Yeah.
So
honestly, if you could just develop something with Qt and then not even bother as far as notification, I would still buy it, to be honest.
all right.
Well, there you go.
And he didn't say at a
just
specific
think to
price,
ponder
so
on,
$500.
Yeah. Okay, he's got one last question. It's something I've thought about, but we've never really talked about, and that would be a Coder Radio subreddit where people could send in Hoopla links, submit questions. What do you think of that, Michael? Could be a good little mine to get show topics from, but it also, it's always been kind of like the topics you're following and things like that. So it's always kind of, unlike LAS, where we're like in LAS and Unfilter, we're kind of filtering or disseminating the news of the week. This is sort of the hand-picked topics that you want to talk about. That's kind of why I think we've never started one, but maybe.
But yeah, and I think when we said no in the beginning, it made sense. So, okay, so what's really happened is there's a lot of people who don't like the news format when we do news shows like this.
Oh.
And there's also people who find the specific language shows to be terribly boring, usually when it's not the language they like.
Right, yeah. Right? There's already a subreddit? Really?
There's a subreddit already?
No, what is it? Link it.
No way.
I didn't know that. Well, I'm going to see. What would it be?
I'm sure there will be before the end of the show.
The reason why I was hoping for a Coder Radio subreddit would be more posting developer-oriented news, whether it's for use on actual Coder Radio or whether it's for just other subredditors. So
I should subscribe to this subreddit.
Wait, is this a real subreddit?
Coderradio.reddit.com.
Is this actually regarding the show, or just someone else using the name?
No, it's stuff for our show. And people have been submitting it actively. There's stuff in the last couple of days submitted.
Wow.
Well, we suck.
So I guess that question's been answered.
All right. Well, since you guys already made it, I'll go ahead and start looking at it.
Somebody add. It looks like Jack created that. Jack Leo. Jack, would you add Mr. Dominic as a moderator?
Yeah, I'll give you my handle in the chat. You guys can harass me.
That is too funny.
And I actually, Josh, you're a Reddit guy. I have a Reddit etiquette question.
Sure.
How hateful is it to post your own article to Reddit?
So you release a new version of your app and you want to tell people about it, right?
Not even that. Just a straight up the Chrome versus Android article.
Oh, like
Chrome
a blog
is greater
post.
than Android.
As long as it's a quality article,
yeah.
I mean, I'll read it. I don't care if someone's self-promoting their stuff as long as it's decent.
I'm of two minds about it. I used to hate it, but now I actually started reading those articles and they seem better.
Yeah, because unfortunately, some people don't post some quite so amazing articles, but the quality's slowly getting better.
So this in my opinion, especially when it's like a really good like a blog post, I think that's going to be met with a pretty good reception. I think people start to get a little off the track when it's like an app announcement or like a podcast.
Oh yeah, I mean that's just jerky, right?
Yeah. But good content is good content in my opinion. So
I'm looking at this subreddit.
isn't that awesome? Look at that. Who even knew, right? Coderradio.reddit.com. And I just I'm already a moderator. They already made me a moderator, so I just invited you to be a moderator.
All right.
I love it. We're just getting things taken care of here, right on the air. Well, Josh, was there anything else you wanted to cover before we let you go?
Nope, that'd be it. Just keep up the good work.
All right, man. Well, thanks for calling. It was good to hear from you.
Yeah.
All right, have a good one. All right, Mr. Dominic. So we had a few other topics, but to be honest, we're at the hour mark. And
we're at the hour mark.
We try to keep it about an hour every week. That was fun. I like taking calls. That was a lot of fun.
We should do that more often, and we should also.
I wonder how it works for people that download it. So let us hear your feedback, and also if you're watching, you'll see the phone number still up 1-425-374-4847. I think we're done taking calls for today, but if you wanted to, you could call that number and leave us a voicemail. We could always play it in a future episode. So that might be cool too. Again, that was 1-425-374-4847, and I'll leave that number active for the next few months. And if you guys use it, we'll keep doing it.
Yeah, I think we could.
I'd be curious to know what people who downloaded this felt like. If it was more fun to watch it live, or if people listening kind of weren't all that interested. So let us hear your feedback, you guys. Email us coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com. All right. Well, I think that's probably it, huh?
Yeah, I think that's it. We're at exactly 1 o'clock.
Good show, sir. Good show. I liked that. All right. Well, where should people follow you throughout the week? You've mentioned it a couple times.
Yeah, at blog.mdominic.com, at Jumanukum on Twitter, and just my name at googleplus.gov.
You've been popping at that blog. You've had some good stuff over there recently, and we hopefully we'll have some links in the show notes. I don't know. Thanks, Google.
Yeah, good job, Google.
Thanks, Google. But that's okay. It's all right. They've given us a lot of Google Docs for free, so I can't complain. All right, everyone. Well, please join us next week, Mondays, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, over jblive.tv or jblive.info for the audio. Email the show, coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com. You can find links to our social profile in the show notes. And don't forget, you can always download us Monday afternoons over jupiterbroadcasting.com. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in this week's episode of Coder Radio. See you right back here next week.